Catherine Wilson started her nursing career in Spalding, Lincolnshire, later relocating to Kirkby Lonsdale, Cumbria. After marrying a man named Dixon, her husband passed away under suspicious circumstances, possibly due to colchicum poisoning. An open bottle of this substance was discovered in his room. Although the doctor recommended an autopsy, Wilson pleaded with him to abstain from conducting one, and he acquiesced. In 1862, Wilson took up a live-in nursing position for Mrs. Sarah Carnell. Curiously, Carnell modified her will in Wilson's favor. Not long thereafter, Wilson presented Carnell with a concoction, urging her to drink it with the words, "Drink it down, love, it will warm you." Carnell tasted the liquid, but instantly spat it out, citing a burning sensation in her mouth. The incident resulted in a noticeable hole being scorched through the bedclothes by the same liquid. Wilson swiftly departed for London, yet her escape was short-lived as she was apprehended just a few days later. The beverage administered to Carnell was discovered to contain a lethal dose of sulfuric acid, an amount sufficient to end the lives of 50 individuals. Wilson's defense contended that the pharmacist who prepared the medicine had unintentionally given her the acid. She faced a trial for attempted murder, yet was ultimately acquitted. The presiding judge, Lord Bramwell, as conveyed by Wilson's legal representative Montague Williams, QC, highlighted the implausible nature of the defense, pointing out that if the bottle had contained the poison when the accused received it, it would have either heated up significantly or burst before she reached the ailing person's bedside. However, the behavior of juries can be unpredictable, and when the judge concluded his summation, much to the likely surprise of nearly everyone present in the courtroom, a verdict of not guilty was reached. Immediately upon departing the courtroom, Wilson was promptly rearrested, as the police had continued their inquiry into her actions and had exhumed the remains of certain former patients. She faced allegations of having murdered 7 past patients, yet the trial proceeded for only one case, that of Mrs. Maria Soames, who passed away in 1856. Wilson vehemently refuted all of the charges. On the 25th of September, 1862, Wilson faced trial under the jurisdiction of Mr. Justice Byles, once again represented by Montague Williams as her defense counsel. Throughout the trial, it was alleged that 7 individuals under Wilson's care as a nurse had passed away shortly after modifying their wills to include her in their inheritance. However, this particular evidence was not permitted in court. Notably, most of these individuals had been afflicted by gout. Renowned toxicologist Alfred Swain Taylor provided testimony suggesting colchicine poisoning, though the defense argued that detecting the poison reliably after such a duration was questionable. In his final address to the jury, the judge emphasized, "Gentlemen, if such circumstances were allowed to persist, no person would be safe when sitting down to a meal." Wilson was ultimately found guilty and received a death sentence. A congregation of approximately 20,000 gathered to witness her execution at Newgate Jail on the 20th of October, 1862. Notably, she became the last woman to undergo public hanging in London. Following the trial's conclusion, Mr. Justice Byles requested Montague Williams to attend his chambers, where he conveyed, "I called you here to express my belief that you handled that case exceptionally well." However, the outcome was inevitable. The evidence was overpowering. "I once prosecuted Rush for the murder of Mr. Jermy, I defended Daniel Good, and I provided legal defense for several other prominent criminals during my tenure on the Norfolk Circuit. Yet, for what it's worth, I can share that in my estimation, you have today defended the most significant criminal to have ever existed." Wilson's sentencing, which marked the initial death penalty handed to a woman by the Central Criminal Court in 14 years, elicited minimal criticism. According to Harper's Weekly, from the age of 14 to 43, her path was one of unswerving yet intricate depravity. Her life was as sordid as her hands were bloodied. She spared not the poisonous concoction even for her partners in adultery and indulgence. Her trajectory was marked by the foulest personal misconduct, meticulously planned murders, as well as calculated and treacherous thefts. It was widely believed that Wilson was culpable of more offenses than the one she was formally found guilty of. Harper's continued. We speak unequivocally of her crimes in the plural form, as Mr. Justice Byles did concerning the demise of Mrs. Soames. This is not solely because we never encountered a case in which the act of murder had been more decisively demonstrated, and where the agonizing suffering of the victim was so intentionally observed by the perpetrator. But it's also because this eminent legal authority, given access to depositions in another instance, asserted with an unprecedented gravity and significance that he had no lingering doubts regarding Catherine Wilson having murdered Mrs. Atkinson, any more than if he had witnessed the crime firsthand. These two murders, however, did not encompass the entirety of her criminal history. There appears to be little reasonable doubt that she poisoned her lover Marr, repeated this act with a second paramour, Dixon, committed robbery and poisoning against Mrs. Jackson, attempted the life of another suitor named Taylor, and dispensed sulfuric acid to a woman in whose residence she was residing, all within the current year. Although these cases have not undergone a formal criminal inquiry, there is a considerable likelihood of their veracity. Even though 7 murders are recognized, if not definitively established in a legal sense, Catherine Wilson's malevolent journey may not conclude here. Adding to the gravity of these atrocities is not only her artful and maleficent knack for insinuating herself into the trust of widows and vulnerable individuals, nor is it solely the gradual manner in which she initially drained her victims' resources prior to administering the successive cups of death with a fiendish calmness, masquerading as a friend and nurse. It is the abominable malice with which she endeavored to annihilate the character and reputation of her hapless victims, aiming to taint them with the disgrace of suicide, all the while being the architect of their own robbery and murder.